Hi, welcome back to the Tinkerage. A friend of mine asked me yesterday to make a cross, a Celtic cross, as a present for a friend who is going to be leaving the village. I'm going to take you through how I go about making that. After spending some time sketching out some ideas, looking on Pinterest for other ideas, with the brief being that it needs to be simple, not too big, and needs to be done relatively quickly, I came up with this design. Now this is very much old school rather than based on CAD. I don't use CAD, it is something I've learned to learn one day, but I find actually doing it with pen and pencil helps me to get a better sense of proportion. So I've created this design, which I have photocopied, and I'm going to take that photocopy and pop it onto this piece of wood. Now I am thinking, now that I've got it here on the wood, that I might change the design again, just slightly. So originally I had planned for this to be solid, with this as a kind of cut on a relief, with circle here, gap here, and then another circle here. Now I'm looking at it this morning and I'm thinking that what I'm probably going to do is simplify it a little step further. I'm going to probably take this inner circle in. I haven't decided yet whether it'll go to there or possibly there. I'm thinking probably that inner line, but then have this as a gap, and with these as holes through there, and then just carve this Celtic knot so that it actually looks like it's folded in. So that will reduce the size here, but I think that'll make the arms of the cross stand out a little bit better. I may then even think about cutting them down to here, but I shall see as we go along. More often than not, when I make spoons or crosses, I will adapt designs to go along, sometimes to cover up mistakes, sometimes just because I think it looks better once I actually get it into kind of 3 dimensions. So first step will be to cover this area with some masking tape. That will make clean it up a little easier rather than spray gluing that on. I'll then glue this onto the masking tape, and then I should probably just rough cut this down to make it a bit easier to handle but not go into the sides, and do the inner parts on the scroll saw first. So, there we go. So this has now been roughed out on the bandsaw, just taking off a little bit of the mass, made it a bit easier to handle. Now, when I want to drill the holes for the scroll saw, I'll often mark with sort of some pen or some other indicator just to make sure I get the right spaces. I've also made the decision now, I've marked here of where I'm going to take it in. So I'm going to take it into this line. I haven't decided yet whether I'll leave the arms at that length or take them in, but that can be decided later. So I'm going to drill holes now for the scroll saw. I can use a 4.5, 5mm drill bit, just enough space to get the blade through, although I may enlarge it on those 3 sections there and possibly even the centre, just to make life a bit easier. So holes for scroll saw are now drilled, 7 of them all together. Now let's get that onto the scroll saw. So, shape of the cross is now there, and I'm really liking that, so I don't think I'm going to take those sides down any smaller. Or shall I? I think that might look better with smaller. I like the height. Decisions. Shall I leave it like that? Or should I make them smaller? I'm going to use a boiled linseed oil as the finish. This is not perfectly smooth, there's still some knife marks. 2 reasons. One, this is a rush job, it's needed fairly quickly. Also, this is something that I'm hoping that the vicar who's receiving it is going to use. And I fear sometimes that if things are so perfect that people might not use them. They might not realise that they're handmade. So I'm not too worried about the fact there are still a few little knife marks in little corners around some of the detail. That's hopefully going to be part of the beauty of this. I finished the flat surfaces to 240 grit, so it's really nice and smooth, and I'm quite happy with that. So let's apply some finish. I'm going to start with the detailed areas. This is too big to dip. Ideally I would dip this in, but I keep this old paintbrush just for this. See the colour coming out in that? Very important when you're making something like this to make sure you don't miss any little bits. Certainly for me as the maker, if I miss a bit like that, it's going to stand out and annoy me. One day I might experiment with applying different finishes to different parts. I had much larger flat areas to do, then I'd probably use a cloth. This is relatively small. I think I'll just carry on with the brush.